Hi, and welcome back to Hot Off the Press, the show about new releases and the authors that bring them to you. I'm your host, Jim Nettles, and we're getting ready to go stack up those to-be-read piles. So let's go around and see who's bringing in the offerings for the evening. So, Layla, you are up first.
Hi, I am Layla Dorine. I write LGBTQ fiction and romance. And tonight I am bringing you one of my favorite tropes, shifters and fated mates. I will be talking about Leo and Lace, which is my double book for the holidays. Novella, novel. We're still working out how long this one's going to be. But it is snow leopards and a human, and they are double booked in a cabin with only one bed.
Miss Dunn.
Hiya, I'm Nancy Dunne, and I write mostly epic fantasy. Sometimes I dip my toe into some steampunky types and a little bit of lit RPG, but tonight I am talking about going back to my fantasy world, my favorite, and talking about a new novella. I challenged myself to write a book that you couldn't hit somebody with, and I did it. And it is The Wizard's Bond, which is about one of my only favorite villain, really the only villain from my trilogy, which is behind me back here somewhere. I gave him a chance to explain himself, and he didn't do a very good job. So that's what The Wizard's Bond is about.
In my experience, you can hit anybody with a book if you throw it far enough.
Very true.
Jenny?
Hi, I'm Gini Koch. I write the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series, formerly for Daw Books and now for Gingerbread Publishing. I also write under a variety of other pen names and in all lengths and genres. But tonight I'm talking about books 7 and 8 in that Alien series.
And Nancy?
I'm Nancy Northcott. I write historical fantasy, sometimes with and sometimes without romantic elements. I also write science fiction and romantic suspense. And tonight I'm here to talk about Spies for the Holidays, which is a collection of 3 romantic suspense stories with holiday themes.
So let's start by talking about, the big world building, right? What world are we stepping into? What do things look like? What kind of mayhem are we going to cause? What sort of challenges might our protagonists face? So, Layla, what kind of world are we stepping into this time?
So this is a multi-author collaboration, and the plot for this is that there are shifters who have booked these cabins, but somehow or another, the guy at the reception desk, he's kind of messed up. He's booked humans and shifters in the cabins at the same time, and there are no open cabins free to move anybody. So Leo and Lace, Leo is actually my human. I thought that would be a fun play on words, just to actually make that his name when he's got 2 snow leopard mates. And his snow leopards kind of show up there a little bit earlier in the day than he does, and they do a little bit of frolicking and playing in the snow. And like most kitty cats, after they play, they're tired, and they curl up on the bed for a nap. And, well, our poor human comes in and thinks, hey, oh my gosh, not only is this an awesomely decorated cabin with this really big bed, but there's these giant stuffed animals on the bed. And he boops one on the snoot, and it opens its eyes. And let's just say that our human learns that shapeshifters exist, and he wasn't quite ready for that. He may land on the floor during that opening, or actually that's chapter 2, but yeah, he does kind of land on the floor. There's a whole fainting thing. There's a moment there where he thinks he's dreaming, and then he can't decide if he wants to wake up or not, because the 2 snow leopards are kind of hot once they've shifted back to human, and they're definitely fuzzy and cuddly looking in their snow leopard forms. So that's where we're at with that.
I'm just picturing all the bad AI stuff on social media with somebody rolling. Never mind. We're just remember, don't feed the wild animals in the live. Miss Dunn, what world are we stepping into?
We are going back to my fantasy world, which is called Arana. It's your stereotypical epic fantasy place. You've got dragons, you've got elves, You've got woods, you've got mountains, et cetera, et cetera. This particular book, though, The Wizard's Bond, takes place actually in a place called the Void, which is, it surrounds the world and it is in the world and out of the world. It's kind of how magic users travel. When they leave one place and go to another, they step through the void, kind of as a shortcut. But it is also a shortcut for people who have passed on. And our wizard, Tybin, who is the main antagonist in the trilogy, has found himself in the void because he finally just fell afoul, shall we say, of the wrong goddess. And she was tired of his shenanigans. Most of the living people were as well. And so she sent him to the void, which is a spoiler. So I'm not going to tell you which of these lovely books behind me that happens in. But anyway, so he is in the void and he is angry, obviously. He's out of his own control, obviously. And most of the book, probably a good half of the book, takes place in the void, with Tybin recounting the reasons why he might be in the void, the things that he did that he thought were right that apparently were not, all these sorts of things. He picks and pulls things from other books and gives you his reasons why he did X, Y, and Z. But the second half, he meets some ancient enemies, shall we say, who are they have found a way out of the void and back into the world of the living. And they are going to see if this little whiny wizard can be their, not sure what I'm trying to say. He doesn't really go ahead of them and clear the way. He just is sort of their spokesperson, in a way. When they make their entrance back into the world, they're going to take him along just so that, if things go sideways, they can shove him out in front of them. Or so that he can kind of, there you go. So, the second half of the book talks about how that plan is set into motion. And I would just sit here and tell you the whole plot, so I'm going to shut up because I'm real bad about spoilers. River Song would have a field day with me.
Jenny?
Well, these are books 7 and 8 of the Alien series, and they're on re-release from Ginger Blue because took them down from Dawn. Now they're Ginger Blue. So Kitty and company have been moving along in the ranks of things, and she and her husband had been in book 5 shoved into being the heads of the American Centurion Diplomatic Corps, and many hijinks and explosions ensued. Book 6 was an alien invasion, which outed that there are aliens to the world, which you would think would make us cohesive, and you'd be wrong. So Alien in the House, due to some shenanigans that the mastermind, who they figure out there is a mastermind in this book, obviously I've known since book 1, but the characters now know that there's a mastermind, and that person, they don't know who it is. They've got to try to stop him or her. But while that's going on, people in the House and the Senate are dying. And the president they cut all elections because there are now lots and lots of aliens watching, including one who's the emperor of the empire that the ACs are actually a part of. So everybody's trying to play nicely with others, and so Kitty's husband gets shoved in as a representative. And during the time when a friend of theirs is figuring out there is a plot and people are dying, and now your husband's in the crosshair. So that's, I look at that as that's my Day of the Jackal political thriller 1. Alien research carries that farther. The mastermind is getting more and more power. A lot of my fans refer to research as the bloodbath or the red wedding. Many characters you really care about are going to die. Some are dying already, but it is kind of a tough little bloodbath, but it's really important because you get new characters that are coming in and everything else. And basically the bad guys are on serious attack. They made it very difficult for our good guys. They've released a drug and no one knows how that's affecting powers and so forth. And so Kitty and company have to figure out what's going on and save the day before, everything blows up and everybody dies. So they're fun, but there is a lot of bloodshed.
Nancy?
These are romantic suspense, and they were originally part of the Canham Castle Holiday Romance series. So they take place in the imaginary town that the group of us created for that series, Canham on Ledwich, which is on the Welsh Marches in Shropshire, England. And the center of the setting is a medieval castle that's now a boutique hotel. So all the stories take place there, and they involve my imaginary spy agency that I created so I could have a spy agency and do what I wanted to with it, called the Arachnid Agency. And agents from Arachnid are the heroes and heroines of two of the stories, and they are supporting characters in the third story.
So let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's talk about who we're actually going on the ride with here. And Ms. Dunne, I will start with you on this one. So let's dive a little bit deeper into our wizard and some of the other folks. Who is it we're really going along on the ride with here?
Well, I would like to say it's the wizard, it's Tybin, but in telling his story, he brings in a lot of little excerpts from the stories that have already been told. He just puts his spin on the people that are telling the stories and why they're being so mean to him and why they remember things the way they remember them. But really, it's about him, and I had planned this book to give him a little space to have a little reflection time, maybe see why we ended up as so much stardust in the void, but he wasn't having it. So it's really that, like I said, the first half is really him remembering things that have gone on and remembering conversations and people and places, and not much of a ride there. The ride actually starts, I think, when he runs into the ancient beings that are making their way back into the world of the living. And they are dragons, very, very ancient dragons. In the story of my universe, the dragons emerged when the world was lonesome and she decided to see if she could use her voice. And when she did, it was so loud that it cracked the surface of the world and magic came out, and the dragons came out. They weren't quite ready to come out yet. So some of their personalities are shaped by that early arrival in the world. And these are two of the oldest who have been finally defeated by the good guys in the universe, and they've just been sitting in the void trying to figure out how to make it back. And when Tabin shows up and starts his lamentations, they think that they've found either a kindred spirit or a willing patsy, one or the other.
So bigger, better villains than your villain.
They are bigger, meaner. They're the big bads. Although he thinks he is, but they are, to be honest.
It's hard when you're not the top villain. Anyway. So, Jenny, why don't we talk a little bit about who all is going to be in these two from the Alien series?
Well, the Alien series follows Catherine Kitty Cat, who is now at this stage Kitty Cat Martini, and married with a child, and still managing to kick butt, take names, save the day. Kitty doesn't really know. Kitty works outside the box. No one's sure that Kitty even knows there should be a box. And so as things go along, she gets shoved. In book 5, she's forced into the Washington Wife class to try to learn how to be diplomatic, because she's the head of she's the co-head ambassador of the American Centurion embassy. In this, because her husband is being moved into the house, she now becomes the ambassador with all the "oh no, you're kidding" that comes along with that. She firmly feels that she is the worst person in the world to be doing this. And in some ways she's right, in most ways she's wrong. Kitty's brand of diplomacy is not necessarily everybody else's, but hers actually works. So it's action, lots of action, humor, romance, and along the way, Kitty has to watch people she loves die and try to save other people she loves and even likes and even doesn't know. and deal with a lot of otherworldly things. There is a gigantic reveal for the series in Alien Research that I won't spoil for anybody who hasn't read it, but a lot of things that you as a reader might be going, I just don't get how that works. How is that working for them? Oh, you're going to find out. And it is not the answer you're expecting, I don't think, but it's a very cool answer. And the particular character who shares all that with you is a character I love and adore, who comes in to Kitty's knowledge in book 8. So there's lots of, like I said, there's lots of depth, but there's also lots of really cool reveals, and Kitty saving the day, which is her job. That's her job. Her job is to save the day, regardless of how weird or bizarre or funky that day may be. That's her job. And for the most part, she does it pretty well. I mean, she's still around to talk about it.
So, Nancy, I know we're dealing with a couple of different groups of spies in this one, but so who all do we get to meet and hang out with in this one?
Well, the first story is about two arachnid agents, Dana Gresham and Blaine Harris. And they walked away from each other 5 years ago after a blistering quarrel. And they meet again on an assignment to guard a weapons designer who's suspected of dealing with terrorists. And so when they do, they both realize the old spark is there, but can they get past what happened before? So it's a second chance at love and forced proximity, because this is their job. They both have to stay there. And all these stories have some action in them, because I like to blow stuff up and, have people running about fighting with other people. So there's a good bit of that in all of them. The first story with Dana and Blaine is called Mr. Never Again, and that's set around Halloween and bonfire night. And then the second story is The Last Favor, and also is about two arachnid agents, and it is a forced proximity, friends to lovers story. Grayson Kane is in Caneham Castle to pick up an award for his late father, and it was just the two of them. So his dad's gone, and he's Christmas alone for the first time. And so that kind of makes him question whether he really wants this solitary life as an operative anymore. And his partner, Laurel Whitney, is there because they've gotten word that an assassin is stalking him. And he refuses to leave the castle. He says, if you tell me there's something that's a danger to other people here, I'll go. Otherwise, this is the last thing my father asked me to do, and I'm going to do it. So that's kind of what that story is about. And there's been an attraction between Laurel and Gray for a long time. And in this situation, it starts flaring up again. And so they both kind of have to decide, what are we going to do about this? Are we going to do anything about this? And that's an issue that they have to deal with, in addition, of course, to trying to stay alive. And then the third story is a Valentine's Day story. It's about Hastings Whitney, who is a computer person, computer programmer, computer business man, and computer program designer, and Corinne Lanier, who's a jewelry designer. And they had a relationship that his workaholic habits destroyed, because he was raised not only to succeed, but to be seen to succeed. His parents were very into conspicuous consumption, and his workaholic habits, she just couldn't take it. So they've come to Caneham Castle to see if at Valentine's Day there's actually still a chance of any kind for them. He's assured her he's changed, but there's a problem at work, and it's a big problem, and it involves the Defense Department. And so that needs to be straightened out urgently. And in the meantime, his sister and her fiance, who are actually Grayson and Laurel from the previous story, are worried about what's causing this crisis. And so they've stepped away from the spy game, spoiler, and stepped back into it to protect him. And so their worries are soon proved valid. So the question is, can Hayes and Corinne survive? And if they do, can they find their way back to each other?
Layla?
Well, you've got Maverick and Briar. They are our snow leopards, and they are best friends. They run a cookie shop together, and they make like truly unique cookie treats. they've always believed they were each other's mates. However, in my snow leopard culture, you don't get your bond marks until you've met all your mates. They've never gotten a bond mark because they've never met Leo. Now, in the chaos of the cabin and finding out that, nobody's pretty much got anywhere to go unless they want to drive all the way back home, they have met their mate, and they have to explain shifters to him. They have to explain what a mate is. Now, mind you, Leo is a photographer and a graphic designer. Wildlife photography is his specialty, so we won't get into how many pictures he takes of his mates once they're out frolicking in the snow. His biggest question in the beginning was whether he was going to shift too now. And I won't tell you what the answer to that is because I don't want to spoil that for anybody, but it is a holiday. They really can call it a meet cute, even though, he does fate in the process. It probably makes it actually a little cuter when they get to tell the story later, especially to family. But it is set around the holidays. And the idea is that the two snow leopards went up there. They got the cabin to spend together because they are friends with benefits. And quite frankly, they are absolutely tired of people asking when they're going to go find their other mate or their proper mates, because no one in their families wants to believe that they belong together. So they have taken this vacation to have the holiday that they want, where they can be together and, express themselves however they want. And surprise, the universe said, and we're going to give you the biggest gift of all this holiday season. And your mate is going to show up there, be snowed in with you.
So one of the ideas that kind of came to me as we're talking about these, and one of the things that I love in dealing with story, right, is the notion of perspective. And it's not only about the perspective of the main character, it's not only about how you think, it's also how do we as the authors look at the perspective of our characters? How do our readers look at the perspectives of our characters, and what do we do when those things change? So, Jenny, what did working on these couple of books kind of teach you about the nature of perspective? And especially since these have been out for a while, this is a re-release. Has your perspective changed since you first put them out? You're on mute.
Good God, that was much harder than it should have been. My perspective hasn't really changed, but my handling of readers' reactions, it's easier because I'm farther away from them. Alien in the House really starts a lot of times if you see me on social media and someone's whining about something, I'm just like, things got to happen, kids. Things got to happen. And so that really starts with the fan base in Alien in the House. Characters that I, as an author, really liked and the fan base liked die. And then characters the fan base loved died in Alien Research. And it was like, it had to happen. There's so much going on that they don't know about that's coming in the books. Keep in mind, I have 16 books are re-releasing. The Alien Collection, which is the collected short stories, are coming out in December. And then book 17, the long awaited, is coming out in April. Had to cut that in half. So book 18 is coming out next December. So there's lots of stuff going on. And all of these books are leading towards that while still having their own reason for being. And one of those reasons is you don't know who's going to die. You don't know who's going to be dead where. You don't know who's going to be dead when. And some of that was I and the readers. I was complacent. It was very complacent, right? Kitty's saving the day. Everything's going to be okay. And there are points where you just have to say, I'm sorry, you can't save everybody. Something bad is going to happen, and it's going to happen to characters you love, and it's happening for reasons But you, the reader, don't know what the reasons are in books 7 and 8. I know what the reasons are. I know but they don't. So perspective on that is different. I have fans who I reread the series constantly. They'll never reread book 8, or I just skim as fast as I can for book 8 or whatever. It's like, I'm reading the bloodbath, right? I get all of that from them. It's like, how many more people are you going to kill? And the answer is, things got to happen, kids. Things got to happen. So I'm glad that I wrote them in the way I did, because again, I tend to write in series. I have standalones, but not all that many. Even short stories tend to get turned into series because it's just how I see things in my head. So I am always, when I'm writing, I see 3 or 4 books ahead. So when I was writing 7 and 8, I saw 9, 10, 11, and 12. So, I know what I'm working towards, and the readers don't. I mean, now they do, but they still don't, because there's more books coming, right? They don't know what I'm working towards on those. So perspective-wise, the person, the characters' perspectives have to change as they go along. If Kitty is the same person that she wasn't touched by an alien, why do we have this long-running series? Kitty has to grow, and the characters around her have to grow. No one's static. Because I think that's boring. I don't like that when an author, in my mind, chickens out and doesn't give you character growth. Okay. If you've met honestly, I think romance writers do this really well, because somebody meets their person, right? And then in the next book, that couple's still there, but they've moved on. They're not the focus anymore because a new couple is the focus, but we get to see that couple number 1 expanded. They're married, they have children, something, right? And I feel like a lot of times if you hold a character static, there's a point where it's like, this person hasn't learned anything, and I'm on book 12. I can't take this anymore. Okay, it's like, the shtick that was hilarious in book 1, why haven't you learned by book 8? And I'm not going to name the author. I'm specifically thinking of when I say this, but her series is part of the reason why I wrote in anger, because I didn't like what she was doing, and I was like, I can do this differently, so I did. So perspective-wise, the characters have to keep growing, and including in the sex scenes, which I realize people I skimmed those. I'm like, well, you're missing some character growth or plot growth or something, because that's why they're in there. They do get harder. I'm going to say that when I had to split 17 and 18 up, the sex scene for the book was in 18, and that dawned on me before I said, I'm ready to turn it in. It's like, I'm not. I have to, oh my goodness. So that's been particularly exciting. But I wouldn't change my perspective on the characters for anything. The characters tell me what's happening. Kitty tells me what's going on. And I don't really argue with her. There's times, but rarely. So I just want everybody to keep on growing and killing things.
So how do you feel that Kitty has grown, especially if these as formative as both of these books were? How do you think that she grew in these couple of books?
People that were really close to her died if she could do nothing about it. And that was huge. It was huge for all of the core team that's been with her since book 1, that they could not stop these deaths was devastating. But it made them more resolved to continue on. Kitty is not a dissolve into nothing and let somebody else handle it girl. Kitty gets angry. Rage is one of her superpowers, basically. And so she gets angry. But it also made the characters realize that certain things that they relied on, they couldn't rely on anymore. They had the aliens have superpowers, essentially. And for a good portion of them, those superpowers get taken away almost completely in book 8. And they all have to deal with that. Something that you relied on as a weapon of defense, if nothing else, you can't have anymore. Technology is being created to fight against the other parts. So we have imagers who can touch an image, and we have, and they've lost almost all their power. The two strongest can barely do anything by book 9. The empaths are the other major powers. The top, Kitty's married to the top empath, and he has to doubt all of his powers because they're emotional overlays and emotional fakes. I can't remember the word I used, but it's like it gives you, it seems like you have emotions, but if you hate somebody, they won't be able to tell. He will not be able to tell. So he can't trust what he's relied on his entire life to be accurate. So they're having to go with pretty much what humans are used to. I've got to go on all these other things. So it's these two books in particular are making it incredibly difficult. It starts in book 5, where they discover, oh, there are technological things that are a problem, and it just culminates hard in book 8. So because again, it's like Superman. If you have Superman can pretty much beat everybody unless they're wearing a kryptonite suit. So what do? I didn't want to have to go to, Deathstroke and all these others. It just seemed ridiculously overblown. But if I could remove powers, and I could, and if I could remove powers for a whole group and make the rest of the other group, doubt themselves and have to double check everything, well, that just evened the playing field and, in fact, put my good guys behind again, which is more interesting. If they're winning all the time, why are we reading, right? You want to see Kitty get into trouble. You want to see her get everybody out of the trouble. You want to see the team working together and those kind of things. So I think that Kitty continues to grow. All the other characters continue to grow, and there's just lots of things thrown against them in these two books that they have to overcome and figure out how to deal with the world as it is now, not how it was, a couple months ago or a year ago.
So Nancy, same sort of thought about perspective. With these short stories, they're romances, but they're action romance. There's real danger and all in these. And these are, once again, you're pulling out ones that have been previously released before. So how do you look at the perspective of your characters in these, and how has your perspective look on them and changed?
As Jenny said, the characters have to change. I mean, the whole point of a romance novel is that at least one character will change their perspective, and that's what makes the relationship work. But I also think that if you're writing a romance, the reader has to be able to see either that both characters have a point in their conflict, or they see why the characters think they're right, and they can sympathize with why the character thinks he or she is right, even if they don't agree. And that, to me, is the hard thing about it. And I don't know if it's so much perspective as trying to walk in somebody else's shoes and think, how would I do in this situation? In Mr. Never Again, the Halloween and Bonfire Night story, Dana comes from a big family. I always wanted to be part of a big family, but you get what nature gives you when it comes to that. And her mother ran away, abandoned the family when Dana was 13 or 14. And her dad had to work 2 jobs to keep the lights on without her mother's income. So Dana and her next oldest sibling, a brother, kind of became the surrogate parents to the younger kids. And they're the first phone call when something goes wrong, not the dad. And so that was a problem for Blaine. Because you're in a secret agent business, you need to focus. Your head needs to be in the game, or not only can you get killed, but your partner can get killed if you are not paying enough attention. And so the trick for me was to work that conflict so that both of them reasonably felt that they were right, and yet shift it so that they could see each other's point of view more by the end of the novella. So it's more that than anything else. And it's their perspective more than mine that I'm kind of working to change. And then in the second story, The Last Favor, the Christmas story, that was inspired by my dad, who passed away on the 1st of December. And so that loss really wove through the entire holiday season for us. And so I thought, if I were in Gray's position and I had lost my father not long before, and I was coming to a crisis of what do I really want in my life, how would that play into what he's thinking? And with Laurel, she was raised for success to be seen, consumption to be conspicuous. You have to wear the right clothes. You have to live in the right neighborhood and the right house. Her parents wanted her to be a debutante, and that was the final straw for her, because that just is not for her. And so she ran away and joined the military instead. And so that's how she got where she is. And so she's very suspicious of the whole family life thing, because she never had a family life that was rewarding, unlike Gray. Because even though his mom was killed in an automobile accident when he was a teenager, he and his dad were really close. And so it's how to see the world the way someone else sees it, and to realize that maybe your worldview's been too narrow all along is kind of the thing. And it's a similar thing with Hastings and his workaholic habits, and Corinne, who's a jewelry designer and has a career of her own. And it's how do you balance your career versus your relationship needs? So it's really more the character's perspective than my perspective. I mean, I do have the perspective of, if I were to write these stories over again, what would I do differently? You know, how could I twist it in a different way? What could I do that would be new? And also some perspectives on how to work in a shared world community, which this is what this was. So it's been kind of interesting from that standpoint, but it's more the character's perspective than mine that changes, I think.
How about for you, Layla?
Right from the beginning, when Leo walks into that room, he's already come up there to kind of get away from his own holiday. He's planning on being alone, but just seeing the stuffed animals on the bed, you get the impression that he's lonely, and because his immediate thought is he wants to cuddle up with those stuffed animals, which aren't stuffed animals, as he figures out, but his perception immediately shifts, and it kind of shifts throughout the book, because it's like, at first, oh crap, are they about to eat my face? Like, they are real. They are, supposed to be predators, even though they look absolutely adorable. I mean, he literally reaches over and he boops one on the nose, and the one he boops, which is Briar, reaches a paw out and boops him back. And that's pretty much when he's like, oh crap, they're alive. But when the medics come and they're checking him over after he's, fainted and hit his head on the floor, his big thing is like, you know what? No, I'm good. I'm not scared of these guys. They've already been snarking back and forth, just making each other laugh. He doesn't want to leave. And he's definitely not going to do the whole, argue about the booking and see if they can find him another hotel. He's good with it. He's going to stay with the Snow Leopards. They're all big movie fans. And I think that was one of the things early for Briar and Maverick, where they were like, it doesn't matter what, the universe, our families, whatever say, you're my person. You're always going to be my person. But when they realize that Leo is also their person, this is not an angsty book. This is a super sweet holiday book. And it's like they figured out a way to take all that love they had for each other and wrap it around Leo too. So that, it's a very easy, their little holiday at the cabin really becomes this romantic getaway. They couldn't have planned it better. It's almost like a honeymoon. They're watching movies at night, and they're cooking for each other, and they're having picnics and playing in the snow. And, it is a holiday romp in the woods where it's pretty much just them the entire time they're at the cabin. and they don't have any interactions except on the phone with other family members. And it's a lot of, well, so you know how you guys have been saying we need to put distance between us? Yeah, you were wrong. So they're getting to inform their folks that, yeah, their folks were wrong in trying to push them apart, and that they're really mates. And basically it's a, you've kind of got 2 weeks to get on board with this before we get home. And by the way, we're bringing a human.
Nancy, how about for you? Especially since you're shifting perspectives and taking a look through the eyes of your misunderstood antagonist.
Yeah, misunderstood. Throughout, you can see the books behind me, throughout Wanderer, Tempest, and Guardian, Tabin is the absolute big bad. I mean, he thinks that, as most of these do, he thinks he knows exactly what needs to be done to save the world. And if you're in my way, you're a problem, et cetera, et cetera. And he picks out someone that he thinks is like-minded. Turns out she's not at all. So he finds ways to make her like-minded. There's that kind of very dysfunctional relationship happening there. So I had a lot going in that I really didn't like Tabin. I mean, my readers have given me some interesting hashtags with his name in the middle of them to describe how they feel about him as they're going through the trilogy. This one actually comes in between the trilogy and Darkness. I have to remember which way I'm going. Darkness, the one with the dragon on it. This is a novella series that I had thought about for a long time, but I'm a pantser. I am not a plotter. So, Jenny, I was very impressed when you said I was on this book and I was already down the road here. I'm like, what is that even like? Okay. I mean, I have vague ideas, but I don't have anything that serious. But this novella series, I thought this will be a good way to take 3 of my characters that really have a lot more to say that does not fit into the main narrative, and give them a little time. Like I say, for my second series, I liked these characters, so I gave them their own books to play in. Tabin's, he's not playing here. He is making his case for why he did what he did and why other people just, I guess he was misunderstood. He thinks he's misunderstood. Why other people didn't understand, why they didn't jump on board. And honestly, as I was writing it and feeling like I was getting to know him a little better, I feel like my perspective towards him did shift a bit. And if the book had stopped after the first half of it, when he was doing all this introspection, then I might have liked him. But the very second something came up that gave him a taste of that, oh, I could have all this power and I could do this, that, and the other, he jumped right back to who he was. And I think we all know a lot of people like that who start out one way, you decide something about them, this is how they are, and the more you get to know them, the more you're like, well, maybe, oh, I see that maybe it's because you grew up, blah, blah, blah. And then they just let you down again. And that's absolutely Tabin's role in this entire universe, is that he's so focused on being on the top that he cannot help but end up at the bottom, and keeps, instead of accepting that, signing, put your hands down, instead of accepting that, he just wants to climb back up again, because this time I see which rung I missed on that ladder, so I'm just going to try it again and try it again. His perspective in the first had changed a little bit about the characters that he felt had wronged him and were not helping him along the way. And once again, as soon as he's given that little sniff of power, he makes up an enemies list. And there are a couple of characters that he goes and pays a visit to. And it's not a pleasant visit, not even close. But the new power that he has hooked his wagon to has given him a way to do that without people knowing it's him. So whether or not he drifts back into my main universe, I haven't decided yet, because I don't really know how long those dragons are going to put up with him. Because I mean, I got through half a novella and I was like, okay, no, enough. So I don't know if they're going to take him. This is Pantser talking. I don't know if they're going to continue with him on their journey back to seek revenge on the world of the living. But for right now, he's saying all the right things that they want to hear, which he then, of course, has to throw out. Now, if so-and-so and so-and-so had done that, I might not have had to kill them, or I might not have had to do this to them or that to them, but whatever. So you kind of still feel like maybe he's learned his lesson? Nope, he has not.
Dunne's a
He has
great
not.
villain. By the way, I just want to say something. I am an extreme linear writer. I start with the title and the first line, and when I get to the end, I stop. I just see the stuff in my mind. There is no outline. There is no outline. The outline is in my head. The outline is the back cover blurb if you're lucky. So, yeah, no, I am just like you. I just see in series, so I see what's coming. But your villain sounds awesome, to be honest. I mean, because he thinks he's right, and that's what villains are supposed to do.
He knows he's right.
He knows he's right, right?
Doubt
no,
whatsoever.
He sounds awesome, honestly. We should keep him.
I mean, I've always said that I just watch the action and then I write up the incident report.
Right?
That's really how I write.
Yeah, linear writers are just taking dictation.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't jump ahead. But with this one, I wrote the second half of it first because that's kind of where I thought it was going to go. And then I backed up and did the introspection stuff and decided that was not as much fun. So I put them together. But there's 2 more characters coming in this series that give their own take on things that happened in the original run of novels behind me here. So we'll see if I've learned anything about writing from writing this little short book, and see if I can do 2 more. We'll see.
Well, we're ready to go start stacking up those holiday to-be-read piles. So before we get out of here, let's make sure everybody knows where to find you guys. Website, social media, and of course, where they can find the books. So, Layla, you're up first.
Well, you can find me at Layla Dorine, author at Wix.com, Rainbow Lyrics and Mellow Mushrooms, which is my blog. All over Facebook. I'm working on TikTok. And Leo and Lace will be out on December 3rd. We are actually going to start releasing some of those double book for the holiday books in November. So look for the series, and of course, look for Leo and Lace.
Nancy?
You can find me at nancynorthcott.com. Nancy Northcott, some variation of that on all social media. Spies for the Holidays will be out October 20th, and it will be in print and ebook.
And the other Nancy?
You can find me at nancyedunne.com. There is an E in there, very important. Otherwise, I think she writes cookbooks, and that's totally not me. You don't want to eat anything.
You had Rachel Carr, but Rachel's vegan cookbooks.
See, now that would work because I am vegetarian, but no, these are old. Anyway, I am at Nancy D_writes on all social media except for Facebook because they wouldn't give me an underscore and they made me do a dot. And my books are currently available in print and ebook through the Zon, but that may be changing. So keep an eye on the Nancy E. Dunne website and we'll see what happens there.
Jenny?
GiniKoch.com. If you want to join my free newsletter, hook me up. You can from the bottom of most of the pages of that website. I'm all over Facebook, X, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Pinterest. These books are out now. 9 is out and 10 is almost ready for re-release. December, I don't have a cover yet, but I want to be on record that I turned in not only on time, I turned in early. The Alien Collection, which is the collected short stories in the Alien series, will be out in December. I don't know what date yet, but I know it's December. So I was patted on the head by my editor who shared that I was not only was I on time, but I was early. So I feel very proud. So that will be coming up, and look for them at, all the majors.
And you can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentialsworkshops.com, creatingpros.com, and of course your ConTinual, and go stack up those to-be-read piles.